Sup guys, it's Alex here, and welcome to another Bracketology update. This one was posted on December 24th, but today when I'm recording it is the 27th, so I'm going to call it the December 27th Bracketology update. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We are getting to we're so close to getting to turn the page over to 2022 and start the conference basketball slate. But before we do that, we got to take a look at this Bracketology after a couple days off over the weekend. I was going to post on Friday, as I mentioned, but I just had Christmas stuff to do and all that fun stuff. But man, this college basketball season has been pretty good to kick things off. A lot of teams, a lot of things up in the air. No true definitive top number one team. I mean, Baylor right now is the number one. They haven't lost, but I don't think they've truly been tested. I mean, they did have that crazy 20-point win over Villanova, but outside of that, has Baylor really been tested? We shall see once the conference slate starts up. But taking a look here at the bracket watch, as I just mentioned, top overall seed is Baylor. First team out is DePaul, which is crazy. When was the last time DePaul made the NCAA tournament? And then the last team in is Creighton. On the bubble, last four byes are Virginia Tech, Florida, San Francisco, who finally suffered their first loss. That's why they're back on the bubble. And then St. Mary's. Last four in are Wake Forest, who's actually looking pretty good. They're having a pretty good sports year with this in college basketball. We got Mississippi State, Northwestern, and Creighton. First four out are DePaul, San Diego State, Marquette, and Utah State. And then the next four out are TCU, St. Bonaventure, Clemson, and Louisville. So a lot of ACC teams here on the bubble. It will be interesting to see what happens with the ACC this year. It's really only Duke this year. That's actually good. Then you got tons of other teams like North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Louisville, Clemson, whatever you want to call them, and all that stuff. They just have a ton of teams who might sneak into the tournament, and then you got Duke, who is the class of the conference, which is crazy because the ACC usually has like 3 or 4 teams that are always top tier. But taking a look here at the bracket, one thing I do want to mention, two crazy results, I guess 3 crazy results. Davidson have beaten Alabama, which is a crazy, I don't even know what to think of Alabama at this point. They've just been so inconsistent, beating top teams, but then losing to like Memphis, Davidson, Iona, that sort of thing, beating Gonzaga. And then I want to mention Tennessee's home win over Arizona. Arizona had previously been unbeaten. Tennessee knocked them out of the water. It was like a 4-point win, but still that is a huge win for the Volunteers. And then my boys, the Kentucky Wildcats, absolutely destroying Western Kentucky 95-60. And then Oscar Tshiebwe had 28 rebounds, which is, I think, the most in Division I college basketball since, I want to say, like 2014, 2015, something like that. Rupp Arena record. I'm just loving Kentucky right now. But taking a look here at the bracket, taking a look at the movement, we have Iowa up to a 9, Alabama, as I mentioned, losing to Davidson down to a 5, Ohio State up to a 4, Davidson new to the field as an 11, Tennessee up to a 3, UC Irvine down to a 14, Wisconsin down to a 7, San Francisco down to a 10. Then if we take a look over there at the Midwest Regional, we have Arkansas down to a 9, Providence continuing their huge run up the bracket. They are now up to a 5 seed. After being one of the bubble teams just a couple of weeks ago. And we have Kentucky up to a 4, Ohio new to the field as a 13, Illinois up to a 6, the new to the field teams as Wake Forest and Mississippi State, the playing game, Villanova down to a 3, Hofstra new to the field as a 14, Colorado State up to a 7, and Navy down to a 15. Then if we take a look over here at the East Regional, we have Michigan up to an 8, Oklahoma down to a 9, LSU down to a 4, San Diego State up to a 13, then Creighton Northwestern, that playing game, USC up to a 3, Virginia Tech new to the field as a 10, Michigan State back up to a 2. And then over there in the West Regional, we have North Carolina down to an 8 after the Kentucky drubbing, Indiana up to a 9, then we have Auburn down to a 5, UConn down to a 6, St. Mary's down to an 11, then we have West Virginia up to a 7, Minnesota up to a 10, and that covers all of the bracket movement. So if you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know that I do an Excel bracket of each bracketology and give my NCAA tournament predictions based off of what I think will happen. Just a fun thing that I do it more frequently during the January to March timeline. I think it goes up to 2 times a week. Every time Joe Lunardi posts a bracketology. And then once March comes around, it's almost every single day leading up to the tournament. And then you got the big tournament video. But taking a look here at the bracket, let's go ahead and kick things off with my predictions. Starting off with Baylor versus Liberty, obviously you know who's going to end up winning that one. That is going to be the Baylor Bears. Then we're going to go with a slight upset here, a 9-8 with Iowa over BYU. I just don't believe in BYU right now. Alabama will move on past Belmont in 5-2. Then Ohio State will be D'Souza with Chattanooga and a 4/13. Then we're going to have Seton Hall and Davidson. I think that would be a great 6 versus 11 matchup, but I'm going to go with Seton Hall winning that one. Then we have Tennessee over UC Irvine. Then I'm going to go with the 10 seed Dons of San Francisco. I think that can upset Wisconsin as a 10/7. And then we got Arizona here moving on past Texas State. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16 out of this regional, we're going to have Baylor here moving on past Iowa. Ohio State moving on past Alabama. I think Alabama could beat Ohio State, but as I mentioned earlier, Alabama has just been too inconsistent so far this season. I just don't know what team is going to show up. And then we're going to have Tennessee here moving on past Seton Hall. Arizona moving on past San Francisco. More on that in just a second. Then we're going to have Baylor moving on past Ohio State. Then we are going to have Tennessee beating Arizona here. That was a great game, Tennessee and Arizona. 4-point game on Tennessee's court. Be interesting to see what happens on a neutral floor in the NCAA tournament, but Tennessee did just beat Arizona, so I have to go with Tennessee there, which sets up Baylor versus Tennessee. This would be, in women's college basketball, this would be a monumental matchup here. But to move on to the Final Four, I got to go with Baylor here moving on out of this regional. So moving on down to the bottom regional, if I can click, there we go. We're going to have Gonzaga here moving on past Princeton. Then North Carolina, I think, can beat Indiana. I know North Carolina did just get destroyed by my Kentucky Wildcats, but I do think that they're a better program than Indiana. Then we're going to go with an upset here with 12 seed Iona over Auburn. Iona already proved that they could beat an SEC team that starts with an A with Alabama. I think that they can also upset Auburn there. Then Iowa State is going to upset New Mexico State. Then we're going to go with Connecticut here moving on past St. Mary's in a 6/11. Houston, I think, can beat Oakland. Then we're going to go with West Virginia over Minnesota, and then UCLA over Weber State. I do need to watch some more Minnesota. I don't really know too much about that team at this point, but got 3 months until the tournament starts. Then first spot in the Sweet 16, we got Gonzaga here moving on past North Carolina, a rematch of, I want to say, the 2017 National Championship, 2018, something like that. Then we're going to have Iowa State moving on past Iona. Houston, I think, will fall here to Connecticut. If you haven't been following college basketball, Houston has suffered potentially 2 season-ending injuries to Mark and then Marcus Sasser, Tremont or Trayvon Mark, and then to Marcus Sasser. That team is in a really bad spot injury-wise right now. I think that they get upset there by UConn. And we're going to have UCLA here moving on past West Virginia. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, I'm going to go with an upset here. I'm going to go with 4 seed Iowa State. Moving on past Gonzaga. Iowa State has come out of nowhere this year. I love the way that this team is playing. I think that they can be upset Gonzaga, who just hasn't seemed like the usual Gonzaga team this year, even though they have tons of talent with Drew Timme, Nembhard. Actually, I think he may be on Florida. I can't remember. And then the new potential number 1 pick, Chet Holmgren. And then we're going to go with UCLA here over UConn, which sets up Iowa State versus UCLA. And as much as I want to pick Iowa State to move on, you got to go with UCLA at this point in the season. So then moving on over here to the top right regional, I want to say this was the Midwest regional. We are going to have Purdue, obviously, moving on past the winner of Campbell and Texas Southern. Loyola Chicago, I think, can beat Arkansas. Providence will beat UCF, and then Kentucky will beat Ohio. Then we're going to have Illinois losing to the winner of Wake Forest and Mississippi State, which I think will be Wake Forest, just having some fun here with the tournament. Then we're going to have another monumental upset with 14 seed Hofstra over Villanova. If you guys have been watching my recent videos, you guys know that I'm not super high on Villanova. They need to find out their identity. And Hofstra's been stacking together some pretty strong wins and performances as of late. I'm pretty sure they beat Arkansas and a couple of other teams. I think Hofstra can make some noise of Fighting Pride. Then we're going to go with Florida here beating Colorado State. I think Colorado State's undefeated, but I just don't believe in them at this point in the season. And then Kansas over Navy. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Purdue here moving on past Loyola Chicago. My Kentucky Wildcats moving on past the Providence Friars. Then we are going to go with Wake Forest moving on past Hofstra, and then Kansas moving on past Florida. And then for a spot in the Elite Eight, as much as I want to pick my Kentucky Wildcats, they just haven't shown that they can handle a really good big down low with Caleb Williams, I think is his name. And then you got Jordan Ivey, potential top 5 pick, manning the front court. I think Purdue beats Kentucky. As much as I want to pick Kentucky to move on there, and then they are going to face Kansas. But then Purdue will move on to the Final Four out of this regional. So then moving on down to the final region, Duke will beat the winner of Nichols and Norfolk State, obviously. Michigan will beat Oklahoma. Then we're going to go with Xavier over UAB. LSU, I think, can handle San Diego State. Texas, I think, can handle the winner of Northwestern and Creighton, which I think at this point will probably be Creighton. USC will beat Vermont. Then we're going to go with a 10/7 upset with Virginia Tech over Texas Tech, a battle of the Techs, and then Michigan State over Wagner. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we're going to have Duke here moving on past Michigan. LSU, I think, can handle Xavier. Actually, no, yeah, we're gonna keep it LSU over Xavier. Then we're gonna go with an upset here with 6 seed Texas. I just believe in that team. I know Texas has been pretty hit or miss so far this season. They have the talent. I think they can make it happen. They upset USC. Then Michigan State will beat Virginia Tech. Then for our spot in the Elite Eight, we are going to have Duke here moving on past LSU, where they will face the Spartans of Michigan State. And then I'm going to go with Michigan State moving on to the Final Four, beating Duke there, ending Coach K's run at a title in his final season. I just believe a ton in Michigan State. I've been saying it from the beginning of the season. I just think that team is going to be very good this year, which sets up a Final Four matchup. Baylor versus UCLA. I think you have to go with Baylor at this point in the season. They just haven't shown that they have any weaknesses at this point. Purdue and Michigan State. I really want to go with Michigan State winning there, but I think I am going to have to go with Purdue. But then for the national championship, you got to go with Baylor. I don't know why it's not letting me pick Purdue. There we go. Baylor versus Purdue, and then the national champion will end up being Baylor at this point. I just haven't seen a team that deserves to be the champion over Baylor. So there we have it. Those are my predictions based off of this. We'll do December 27th Bracketology. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave your thoughts about my predictions and comments and all that stuff. Let me know your own predictions based off of this Bracketology. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year. And I will see you all later.